Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills are running out of chances. And with Joe Brady now leading the offense, this season could either finally launch Buffalo over the Super Bowl hump or prove that even one of the NFL's greatest talents can carry the weight alone.
And that stress, that pressure, that reality. And I think it makes it bigger every year that they fail to get to a Super Bowl. You have one opportunity a year, and there aren't many left. We talked about that after they lost to the Broncos in the division round. How many more times is this chance going to come around while Josh Allen is in his prime? 5 times? 6 times? 7 times? Not many times in the grand scheme of things.
No, it's not. And they get put in the Super Bowl window and considered a Super Bowl caliber team at times just because of the greatness of Josh Allen. It's like that. It's like some of the greats we've seen in the history of the sport. It's a little bit like sometimes what I would say with Aaron Rodgers in his prime or John Elway in his prime, where teams just go, wait, yeah, look, they got that guy. They should be they're in the Super Bowl window. But then you kind of look at it and you go, yeah, but who else? Like who else is on the team? We talked yesterday about, Khalil Shakir's at number 3 on most really good teams in the NFL. He's the number 1 receiver on their team last year. Come on, it's crazy. We talked yesterday off air. I said, hey, look at the Bills' defensive line. If you took the Seahawks defensive line, you'd probably take all 4 Seahawks players before you get to 1 on the Buffalo Bills. So it's not fair. It's one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen. I'm going to continue to say this. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are first ballot Hall of Famers. I don't give a shit if they ever win the Super Bowl or don't get to it. They are phenomenal. And Josh Allen is as good a talent as I've ever seen. He's on the Mount Rushmore for me of greatest arms in the history of the sport. And when I talk about just pure power and the ability to do everything that way, power arms, him, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, John Elway. And then we know the ability he has to make backyard plays. His running ability is special. I would say right now, unanimous, even at the owners' meeting when I'm hanging out with coaches, Josh Allen is viewed as the best player in the NFL, and I don't think anybody thinks otherwise right now. And I just hope people can realize how special of a player we're watching. We know Mahomes is one of the greatest of all times. Josh Allen is right there. He just hasn't had a Chris Jones and a McDuffie and a Tyreek Hill and some other guys that can help you get over the hump to get to those type of games and win a Super Bowl. So you know me, I love him. I know you love him too. He's phenomenal, one of the greatest I've ever seen.
We got our first glimpse of what he could become Week 3, 2018 in the viewing room at NBC. When the Bills went to the Vikings, Minnesota was favored by 17 and a half points in that game.
Jeez.
And Josh Allen
took over.
Was jumping over guys,
right.
Diving into the end zone, demonstrating for the first time the running ability that had been overlooked if just flat out undiscovered because all the talk was completion percentage. Remember that? Oh, completion percentage at Wyoming. Oh, I don't know if his completion percentage is high enough. I don't know if his accuracy is good enough. And there's always going to be questions about everyone, but the Bills wanted him. They traded up to get him, and he's been a winner so far, but they haven't gotten where we've thought they're going to get. Here's where he is on the list of most wins before turning 30. Apologies to all those who insist wins are not a quarterback stat. Many are saying that they're relevant. This graphic would suggest that they are. Josh Allen at 88, 1 behind Patrick Mahomes, who got to 89. Lamar Jackson can pass both of them this year because he turns 30 in January. So, elite company for Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson could end up at the top of the list. The others on the list at 80, Ben Roethlisberger and Peyton Manning.
Yeah, these to me, these are special players here. We know Tom Brady has the greatest career of all time. We know that. But here's what I will say to that too. The greatest career. I don't necessarily always think he was the greatest player, and I don't think he was as good as those guys right there when they were in their prime. These guys right here that we just put on this list were phenoms that could overcome. Oh, I have no blocking. Oh, I don't have a receiver. It doesn't matter. I'll make it work. Blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. Brady, as awesome as he was, it was a little different formula there. They didn't just go, hey, here's the ball, take over the offense for us. We know they played a team sport for 4 or 5 years. And then in year 5 of Brady, it was kind of like, hey, he's starting to get damn good. Let's start getting in the shotgun, and with these new rules on the defense and all that, and you can't touch the receivers, let's start throwing the ball more. And then that exploded. But these were guys, like you said, where it was like year 1, year 2, the organizations were like, oh my gosh, these guys are freaky. And then it's just like, here, we're going to play through you. That's amazing. And, of course, I know they had some good teams with them too, but that's a group there that's very special. And Peyton Manning, maybe not the physical freak that maybe some of those guys are, but more freaky than you realize, but a mental freak and the greatest mental freak ever at quarterback. So that's a great list.
Josh Allen is 4th on the all-time list for passing touchdowns before turning 30. Pop-up trivia.
All right, let's make our way up here to Western New York, down the street from where I currently am. And your question for the Buffalo Bills, and I think it's a fair one because we're hearing a lot after the fact. Was Sean McDermott really holding back the Buffalo's Bill defense? We know Sean McDermott began his coaching career in Philadelphia with the great Jimmy Johnson. It is Jimmy Johnson, right? Who's the DC?
Yeah, Jim Johnson.
Yeah. And then he made his way to Carolina, where he was the DC. And then, of course, he graduated to the Bills job, where he turned that organization around post-Rex Ryan. So, Rand, was Sean McDermott the problem on the defensive side of the ball?
And I posed this question really, honestly, more so for the offense and not the defense, because I thought the defense just throughout his tenure was sound. But I think one of the main issues for Buffalo has been obviously the wide receiver position and just the consistency of the offense. Can they make the play when the team needs it? Now, they've had instances where they left the field with a lead with less than 20 seconds left in the game. Obviously, that falls on the defense, right? But the reason why I pose this question is because the guy who was your offensive coordinator, who people had questions about at one point, is now your head coach, and everyone is expecting totally different, approach to it, aggressive nature in terms of calling the plays. And so to me, that always makes me think, like, who was the real problem? Was it Sean McDermott? Obviously, defensive-minded coaches don't want to really be aggressive with the football or take chances. Hey, let's live to see another down punt, let our defense play. Or was it really the offensive coordinator and he just didn't have things dialed up? So to me, those are all the questions that I think are fair questions. And I think we'll really find out, because there's no head coach, whether first-time head coach or, a recycled head coach, that's coming into the season with more questions than Joe Brady.
Yeah, Joe Brady, South Florida, William Mary. So some bad, a lot of good. I'll put it that way in terms of where he started and where he is now. Now, shout out to Joe Brady. We had him on at the Combine. He's fun to talk to, but does have a tall task ahead of him. A lot of expectations for a team that wins a lot of football games year in and year out. All right, let's wrap this thing up. By the way, Rand, I love that every time you try to get in the last word before the break, producer Sean has to tell you you're muted, so you just out there talking to yourself. Let's look at the odds to win the AFC Championship before we get out of here. No surprise, the Bills, Ravens are at the top. The Chiefs, it's crazy to say, Rand, but let's start here. The Chiefs at plus 750, third in this list. Is that surprising at all? We know about Patrick Mahomes' injury. He's coming back, so on and so forth. But of those three teams, the Bills, Ravens, and Chiefs, are you taking two of them over the Chiefs?
I don't know that I'm taking the Bills over the Chiefs, but hey, I get it. They just got to get people to bet. I'll just say it like that.
They're throwing to his new addition, wideout DJ Moore. Just look at that beautiful football. Oh, man. The Bills quarterback was asked about the wide receiver room earlier today.
I think everyone's going to play their part, obviously. Certain guys are better at certain things, just like anybody else is, but just trying to figure out what suits everybody right now during this OTA period, and to have guys that are able to do different roles but also go in there and not be afraid to block and be team-first guys. That's what we want. But to see, again, some new faces and brought some old faces back. Again, guys are going to be able to mix match and learn different positions and see what sticks and go from there.
Jeff, you used a word earlier today about the Bills' continuity, right? Because they have Josh Allen, they have Joe Brady. But now with Brady as the head man, what kind of differences are we going to see?
Well, that's what's so interesting about this. There is continuity, but there is clear change too, and it's this very interesting contradiction that might work for the Bills. Joe Brady is very different than Sean McDermott in a lot of ways, and I'm not saying that will result in something different in terms of actual on-field results, but he has an energy about him that I think will sort of prevail in Buffalo and work very well with that locker room. Now, they've obviously added new pieces in DJ Moore on the offense and Bradley Chubb on defense and others as well. So you're seeing those changes. This is a team that recognizes they couldn't continue as they were and expect to win the Super Bowl. The question is, will the continuity work? Will Joe Brady and Josh Allen be able to do enough with what they have to be able to get over this hump? And they believe that they can. And Joe Brady definitely brings a certain energy that I think is going to be very well received in Buffalo.
I think whether or not the passing offense, because the run game was dominant last year, can improve at all. A lot of it does hinge on DJ Moore and what they get out of him, and he was their big acquisition to the receiver group. But I also think Joe Brady and the Bills could be served well by leaning into what I feel is the strength of that passing attack, and that's their tight ends. Dalton Kincaid was the best pass catcher in this offense. He's their best weapon against man coverage. And when they used multiple tight end sets, 12 13 personnel, which we have been discussing a lot, right? That's the trend of the league. They were second league-wide throwing the ball in EPA per play. But they didn't use them a lot. And some of that had to do with Kincaid's availability. He missed a few games. But I think it's a really well-rounded group with Dawson Knox being a little bit more traditional, and then Jackson Hawes is a very good blocker. And I think they could be well served by leaning even more into those tight ends, because coupled with that dominant rushing attack, you're really able to dictate to defenses the way teams like the Rams and the best teams that use tight ends at a high rate, did last season.
You know, I'm watching the Sabres and the Canadians on ESPN last night, and it's just like, can they catch a break? Can they catch a break? They lose at home, game 7 in overtime, and it's like, this fan base deserves it. I wonder if the pressure is lifted or if the pressure is more with a new head coach. Like if it was McDermott again and they're hitting their wall and they're doing the same thing that they were always doing, it's like, gosh, it's all on Josh Allen's shoulders. But to Jeff's point, here comes a very different type of coach. McDermott from the defensive side of the ball has been in the league forever, to Joe Brady, who is basically a peer of Josh Allen's, is one of his pals who has been with him before, and comes in with maybe a different youthful exuberance and maybe more of an offensive-minded approach with Jim Leonhard as defensive coordinator. That I'm fascinated to see how they come out of the gates. And I think week 2, opening that new stadium against the Lions on Thursday night, is going to be a nice litmus test for all of us to see where these Bills are under the spotlight, under the pressure, and how they respond to that. Because I don't want to feel that way for Buffalo again. And I felt it again last night.
Yo, mic check 1 to 2, -1, -2. Game over for this video, folks. Smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to stay in the huddle for more. This is NFL Madness, bringing the heat and signing out.